Well, we have a couple more people coming in, but we're going to go ahead and start because we have a lot of exciting things to talk about. And so those of you that don't know me, I'm Molly Burgess, I'm the Executive Director of the Manufacturers Council, and we are glad that you're here. Welcome. We have a few announcements. So as you may have seen just a moment ago, this meeting will be recorded and it'll be posted at our website on Monday afternoon. And you'll be able to, under the events tab, and you'll be able to take a look at it or share it with your colleagues. And so that means you don't have to take notes today, because you can just sip your favorite brew. And today I brought a Modelo because it happens to be in the refrigerator, but it's significant. It has to do with trade, right? And so anyway, just relax and enjoy this happy hour. First of all, want to report back that I represented the Manufacturers Council at the Women Making California event that was presented by California Manufacturers and Technology Association on Tuesday up in Sacramento. And the MCIE holds an association membership with the CMTA. We've done a lot of things together, and I think there's a lot of benefit in that for both of us. At this gathering, I had the privilege of meeting some top women in manufacturing from Bayer, General Motors, BP America, Molson Coors, Gallo, Gentech, and Blue Diamond Growers. And also Lori from CMTC was there as well. We heard 3 assembly women speak about their struggles. Our keynote speaker was Dee Dee Myers. She's the Senior Advisor to Governor Newsom and Director of the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And she was the first woman to hold the position of White House Press Secretary under President Clinton. She wrote a book, Why Women Should Rule the World, which was interesting to hear about. And of interest to manufacturers, and perhaps on a hopeful note, Dee Dee said that, quote, making stuff here, meaning California, seems more urgent than before. She said that the California Go Biz department is an advocate for the small business community, and they want to create an environment for businesses to succeed. Remember to remind her about that. And when she was asked by a manufacturer about the rising cost of employees, Dee Dee suggested that the business community needs to spend more time educating legislators about their issues. And of course, that's something we know, but we always need to be reminded of. So it was quite an interesting event for us. We want to take this time to thank and recognize our major sponsor funder, CMTC, California Manufacturing Technology and Consulting. They have many valuable resources that we will share with you in the future for you, those of you that are unfamiliar, or you can give us a call. Vincent's going to put their website up in the chat box, so you'll have a direct link to some of the benefits that they offer. And as a reminder, the MCIE is creating a new series of videos about manufacturing, because many of you have told us that your biggest challenge is hiring and retaining employees. We hope that by sharing these videos, we can create interest in manufacturing jobs, and also that you can use these videos as part of your hiring process. This is no cost to our members as a benefit, so if you're interested, you can either put a note in the chat box or reach out to us by email, and we will be happy to follow up with you. If you haven't seen some of the videos that we've already completed, they're up at our website, and you can go there actually directly by going to ie-mfg.com. So Debbie, would you like to tell us about our meeting next month? Oh, we're not hearing you, Debbie. Oh, you're muted.
It's really hard to tell what I'm saying then. So our next meeting is May 18th. That meeting will be on a Wednesday, and it's part 2 of the 3-part series on supply chain disruption. So Steve Harrington is the industry liaison for the National Center for Supply Chain Automation. And so he'll be sharing the rest of his bio. It will be on the calendar and you will get that reminder. So please watch for that in your email, but we look forward to part 2 of the series.
And if you think that you are missing an email, you can always go to our events page at mfgcouncilie.com for upcoming and to read about past events as well. So next, I would like to introduce Ryan Neeson, Economic Development Coordinator from San Bernardino County Economic Development Agency. And we often get to hear from workforce development, but today we have invited Ryan to share resources and services that the county economic department can provide to businesses. Ryan, you ready to go?
No, give me a few minutes. No, thank you, Molly. Yes. So we are actually co-located in the same office with Workforce Development. We work closely with them and share their services oftentimes with businesses who are looking to come to the county, because they are, as you've mentioned, a great resource to have for all manufacturers and businesses here. So, but definitely we have a few initiatives that I wanted to cover. State of the County, I'm sure some of you have attended that event. That's one of the events that the initiatives that our department puts on and helps to hold every year. Also manufacturing is one of our initiatives. We want to gather manufacturers, get them together, invite them to the county and show them the resources that are available. We actually have a link to MCIE in our website. And I encourage all of you guys to visit our website, selectsbcounty.com, because there's lots of great resources there for all different businesses in the county, including manufacturers. Another one that we are heavily involved in right now is international trade. I don't know if you guys remember, the county hosted a trade mission to South Korea back in 2018, 2017, right around then. South Korea is one of the, is like the 6th largest exporter. California is, sorry, let me rephrase that. So California has a number of countries that we export to, and South Korea happens to be number 6 on the list. California regularly exports a little over $9 billion to South Korea. I know with the past couple of years, it's taken a hit, but later on this year, we are actually hosting another trade mission to South Korea. Looking forward to that in around October time. And that is a big help for manufacturing here in our county. Just some of the other areas that work on is also film. Our office is the film office for San Bernardino County, so all the film permits come through us, and that has a $10.3 million economic impact to our county. But largely what we do is try to help businesses in the county and also come to the county. So we are heavily involved with attraction efforts. We go out to trade shows, we market to other manufacturing industries and try to lure them over here, go to other counties as well. So if your business is looking to expand, or you know a business who is looking to expand, we have site selection services. We can help you, assist you with that. So finding a new location. Oh, there we go. Oh, cool. I don't have to stare at my face. So this is a lot of the stuff we do too is gathering information and to help promote the county. So you could see here, this is one of our ads that we put out, and it really highlights all the unique things that the county has to offer. You could see the $1 trillion in gross domestic product, ranked top 25 places to start a business. We also have entrepreneurship efforts that we assist with SBDC, SCORE, fourth sector out in Ontario. And we're really, right now, we're really pushing our micro business grant. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that. It's for businesses with 5 or fewer employees. For-profit and nonprofit businesses can apply. And one of the key things there, what makes it a micro business, is businesses that make $50,000 or less in 2019 and 2020 can apply. So that may not apply to many of you, but if you know a business, we really appreciate your help in getting the word out. We have around $2 million to spend to give to those businesses, and it's a $2,500 grant. They don't have to pay it back. And we are out there knocking doors. We're out there. I visited the farmers market in Joshua Tree and talking to businesses there and just giving out flyers and introducing them to this program. So any help that you guys can provide with getting the word out, we really appreciate it. We have a number that's available and an email that we answer regularly. But other than that, those are some of the main things that we're working on right now. Introducing to services, GoBiz, like you said, California Office of Small Business as well. We have lots of great resources in the county. We really want to highlight those and introduce that to businesses outside of the county and attract them here.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you.
You're coming today, and that's great information.
I have a question for Ryan, if I may.
Sure.
Ryan, we have a lot of companies that could be exporting. Are there resources that, grant sources for them?
Yes, thank you so much. I have a stack of papers here. I'm trying to get through all of them and we just touch on the highlights. But yes, we do have an export readiness program for manufacturers in the county. And what that does is we'll pair you with a consultant to help assist your business with exporting, whether you're currently exporting, you're looking to export. We have a resource for that. And it's right now it's available for businesses with 15 or more employees.
Okay, but is there funding? Because a lot of the companies, what they need is, I'll tell you, I was just on a call on a webinar, and apparently Canada, get a load of this, for marketing promotional materials for global markets, up to $50,000, and for financing up to $100,000, which I know here, we don't touch, but anything would be helpful for these companies because pre-export capital often is a critical challenge for them.
I am not aware of any programs like that. That sounds amazing. The one that our county offers is this export readiness program.
Okay.
Ryan, are there limits other than the size of the company?
Let's see, I'm looking at the thing. It's limited to manufacturers in the county, 15 plus employees. You need to have an online presence and physical facility.
Okay, great. Good question, Elizabeth. Thank you. Okay, one more reminder. If you haven't signed up to be an MCIE member, please remember to do so at the link that Vincent will provide in the chat box. There's no cost at this time. However, that's probably going to change pretty soon. So I want to warn you, now's the time. And it's important to us that you be a member, you participate, and we love to have you join us at these events. So now I'm going to introduce our moderator, Elizabeth Glynn, who is an export logistics and manufacturing consultant. Some of you know her since she's been working with manufacturers and logistics companies for many years now. She's an export strategy, export operations professional with 25 plus years of experience in export expansion. And her purpose is to help manufacturers increase sales revenue and profits by expanding their sales globally. Her tagline is, "You are sitting on gold." And I'm happy to give Elizabeth a plug here today. She's always been wonderful help to us, and I'd like to encourage you to contact her if you would like to have more information. So Elizabeth, I'm going to let you introduce our speaker for today and go ahead with it.
All right, thank you for that nice introduction. And yes, some of you I know, and then some of you I'll know into the future. I will share, as Molly had mentioned, I'm not kidding when I say our manufacturers are sitting on gold. I just had a conversation with two gentlemen originally from India, and the one gentleman said the Made in USA label carries so much clout, and it's estimated in this country that less than 18% of our companies export. So think about it. If we were to export, think about Germany. Of what it produces, 46% is exported. South Korea, it's 47%. In this country, it's 18%. So if we were to get our exporters to help them export as little as 5 to 10%, that would be huge. And the opportunities are significant. And not only that, you have long-term relationships with these players. So it's important. It's important. So with that, okay, we're going to talk a little bit about transportation today. There's a lot going on. And I would like to introduce BJ Patterson. He is a Navy veteran that has spent the last 30 years working in the logistics field, working every aspect of the business from transportation to warehousing. He did this as the founder and CEO of Pacific Mountain Logistics, which is a full service 3PL, third party logistics provider. And they handle warehousing, distribution, value added services, and freight brokerages. And for those of you that are not familiar with transportation, our customs brokers and freight forwarders, they are partners. We work with them and they help us to get our goods not only positioned, but to strengthen those relationships. He's also worked with other top companies, Roadlink Transportation Solutions, NFI Distribution, DHL, and Target Stores. Mr. Patterson is the recipient of the 2019 Peter Drucker Award of Excellence in Logistics and Supply Chain Management. So with that, I'd love to introduce BJ Patterson. And just for those of you that saw the notice, we were going to have a representative from the Port of Long Beach, and I think there's been some emergency, so she wasn't able to join us. But between BJ and I, we'll be able to address and answer your questions. So BJ.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for that introduction. Linked as it was, it's kind of funny. Logistics used to be, when I got into this business, and I see one of my longtime friends down there, Steve Harrington. I've been doing this gig for a really long time. And he's kept his hair, and I haven't. I don't know how that's happened yet, but I haven't figured that out. But logistics was never sexy, right? It was never. In fact, most people. I spent most of my career trying to explain to people what I did for a living. No one just like, what is it you do? And over the last few years, we've seen how important that is, supply chain and logistics and getting things to where they are. And so it's kind of actually nice that people actually seem to care these days. Unfortunately, they need to care even more than they do. But for manufacturers today, the challenges, unfortunately, are going to get greater, not less, over the particularly next 7 to 8 months. I think they're going to be possibly even more challenging than they were in 2020. To briefly kind of contextualize where we are today. Where we are today is, the ports are kind of, I wouldn't say they're back to normal. They're not. I mean, they're still backed up very bad. Not as bad as they were, thanks in part to what is eventually going to be our problem. That is the closure of Shanghai. For those of you who are not aware, Shanghai is the largest port in the world, and by a large margin. If you think of Long Beach and LA being the largest port in North America, port complex in North America, Shanghai is, I believe, last number is about 8x what Long Beach and LA are.
Wow.
So you think about it in terms of how big Shanghai is, it's a big deal that it's been shut down largely for the last almost month. The amount of cargo that's held up there, I saw a number on Monday that's 140,000 containers as well in what's known as the Shanghai Basin. So, eventually that tsunami is going to head this way. Where we are today is one of the biggest problems we have is empty containers. And it's not that we don't have them, it's that we have way too many of them. Surveys over the last month or so have shown in Southern California anywhere between 30 and 50,000 containers sitting around. And the problem with that is that they clog up the port, they clog up yards where we typically bring containers to dwell. They clog up warehouse yards that they can't get them returned. And more importantly, they tie up chassis that are needed to move freight around Southern California. You can go to almost any warehouse in the Inland Empire and see containers, empty containers sitting on wheels. You know, the problem has been that a lot of issues of why that has happened, why they're not returned at the rate that they should be back to China. Everything from, you know, you guys were talking about exports. They've tried to allocate X number of them to exports, but if you haven't noticed, we don't do a lot of ag export out of Southern California. That's primarily Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, on the West Coast, but the containers in Southern California. And so because of some of these limitations that are on the steamship line by the FMC, you know, they've been hesitant to run them back. Also, your bigger retailers and some of your bigger BCO and shippers have employed the employed the tactic of chartering private vessels to get their containers here. Well, that's all well and good, but they don't go back with containers, empty containers, because they're chartered to a specific BCO, and they don't have license. They don't have carriage contracts to take other containers, other steamship lines containers back. So that's made the problem worse too. The empty container issue, I mean, I was on a call about 10 days ago with the Department of Transportation, Department of Labor, where we talked to, you know, so Fran Inman, and we talked to them. They linked about, you know, coming up with resolutions to the empty container problem. So, I mean, that's a problem. That's what's clogging up. There is still a driver shortage. There's been a driver shortage for almost as long as I've been in this business. That driver shortage is not getting any better. It got worse during COVID. And a lot of the demons that we see today are demons that have been coming at us for a very long time. And most of these, you know, as much as people don't like to say, a lot of these started back in the 2007, 2008, you know, not just the recession, but the Clean Trucks program at the port. Clean Trucks program at the port would have been an unmitigated disaster had it not been for the recession. Anybody in the business knows that. Lost a huge chunk of drivers and driver capacity because of that. And we layered on top of that AB5. AB5 has driven even more drivers out of the port drayage market now and reduced capacity even further. So a lot of the shortage problems are self-made. It's not that the Clean Truck program was needed. It wasn't any of that, but the execution of it was untimely. I mean, we got through with it, and it didn't, you know, cause the disruption that it would have had the recession not saved it. Reduced volume during the recession made that. Now you come fast forward, it's 2022, and we're lacking capacity both on the truck side, chassis side, and warehouse. You know, every warehouse, I mean, Southern California Inland Empire, for instance, just announced on Monday that their vacancy rate is 0.3%. 0.3%. 30 million square feet under construction. 94% of the 30 million square feet under construction is already leased. Okay, that is unheard of. 3% is considered completely leased, and it's 0.3%, they just said. So now you got the problem of where do we put all the goods that keep coming in? And that will even get worse if the economy slows. You know, it's the merry-go-round. It's great as long as the merry-go-round's going. But when the merry-go-round stops, you know, all that freight's got to go somewhere that's already in motion. And then you add on top of this tidal wave that's going to come when Shanghai reopens. When Shanghai reopens, you're going to be back to 120 120, 150 ships anchored off of Long Beach and LA trying to get unloaded. People said, well, let's divert to the East Coast. You know, and there's some logic to that in some cases, but remind yourself always that none of the ports on the East Coast they can't carry LA Long Beach's water. I mean, it's not the same. You know, Charleston, Savannah, I mean, they pride themselves when they have one super ship in port. You know, one 12,000 TEU ship, and they throw a party. Well, LA's got 9 of them at dock. You know, it's the East Coast doesn't have the capacity to really make a big dent in that volume. Not like Long Beach, LA does. We can, you know, if anybody in Southern California, I mean, California's got a lot of challenges, but we are blessed with, you know, one of the best port complexes around. And even though there's, you know, a lot of automation things they can do, they do move a lot of things. You know, so the big thing to think about as you're a manufacturer is I would look at lead times, because this wave that's going to come out of Shanghai when it reopens should not be underestimated. It's a lot of freight, and that's, again, it's the largest port in the world, right? And I mean, they're talking about problems in Europe, they're talking about problems all in South America. A lot of these problems when that freight finally releases. You know, and I wish I had good news, but there's no relief in sight. And then you add to the fact that, you know, we're out of warehouse space. SCE announced, I think it was yesterday, that they don't have any power for the 15 million square feet that's planned along the I-215 corridor. They're short power, and they don't have enough electricity to power the warehouses that are already under construction and planned along the I-215 corridor. You add to that also the growing resentment and pushback from different municipalities about the construction of warehousing. So the lack of space is going to get worse, not better. So again, you know, that's going to impact lead times, it's going to impact costs. You'll see a brief lull in, you know, if you watch truck tonnage reports, you'll see a brief lull in those, which you always see in May and June. But there's we're going to be no relief on truck rates in the fall. They'll be back up to where they were, if not higher. You also have lease rates on warehouses that are now in the Inland Empire bumping $1.80 a foot. To put things in perspective, I can remember in 2007, you know, throwing a fit because I was paying 38 cents a foot. Think about that. $1.80 a foot, and that's in the eastern IE. That's not in the western IE. That's in the eastern IE. That's Fontana, San Bernardino, Rialto, Banning. Banning, they just leased a warehouse over there for $1.50 a foot. So that's going to put more cost pressure on the supply chain as they try to absorb these crazy expenses. Labor, you know, labor is going to continue to be tight. My friend Harrington over here trying to get people into the automation side of the business. I know I had a long time at Seller Workforce Development Board for a long time, and you know, the fear that automation was going to displace jobs is mythology. Automation is merely going to make up for the gap that already exists. As the baby boomers retired, we all knew, you know, 15 years ago that we were going to have a labor shortage, you know, because, you know, the baby boomers didn't have as many babies. So we knew that there was going to be a labor shortage. Automation, particularly in logistics, is all it's going to do is hopefully fill the gap in the shortage of labor that is there. It's not going to replace any jobs. If nothing else, it may create some more high-paying jobs. But you know, we need the automation to come online in order to bridge the gap of labor that's there. And it doesn't seem to be coming back.
BJ, can I interrupt you just a little bit? Some of us are having a hard time hearing you. There seems to be a background sound. But if you can speak a little louder, that would be helpful.
Oh, no, that's fine. No, thank you.
And you mentioned automation, so I'll just ask right here if the port is doing any automation related to robotically moving containers on and off ships. I know that we were out there, the MCIE took a tour of the Long Beach port, and we saw one dock that was automated, and that seemed to help. Have you heard of any additional automation efforts?
There have been a lot of automation efforts, but unfortunately, the labor has not been a willing partner in that process. The Long Beach, the ILWU has now been supportive over the years of much automation. Not like ports around the world, which are much more automated than U.S. ports. So there is automation efforts. There's a lot more automation at the port now than there was, 10, 15 years ago. But it's a far cry from what you see in Chinese ports or other Asian ports that are almost fully automated. In Europe has some highly automated ports. Labor in the U.S. has just not been very supportive of that.
BJ, do you have any suggestions for, we have probably two groups here, some that are importing and some that are exporting. Obviously there's a lot of frustration with the imports. How long is it taking to clear goods? Because it used to be, that's where automation was beneficial, because you could have it pretty seamless. Obviously that's not happening now. And do you have any recommendations for importers?
Obviously, lead times are critical, so, you think it under the current guidelines, if you're coming from most parts, if you're coming from China, you have 17 to 18 days of sail time. The dwell at Anchorage right now is running about 8 days, 8 to 9 days. That's what it looks like right now, which isn't that bad. Once you get dockside, most vessels are unloaded in 3 to 4 days. It depends. The docks are highly congested because of the empties. Has been a real problem, but 3 to 4 days, and then we've been able to retrieve containers within 3 to 4 days after that. One of the biggest problems also has been customs has been highly undermanned, and so if your goods are coming in and they're going to have to go through an exam, then you're going to have to add a week at least. It's taking a week to get through intensive exam, which we see on our brokerage side. We see that change of material, something very minor, and that triggers an intensive exam. So anything on your bill of lading that's different from what you've been importing, that typically triggers an intensive exam. And those are taking a week, where before they typically took about 48 hours.
So documentation, making sure the documentation it's clarified, it's clear, and it's done properly is going to be absolutely critical. Absolutely.
And again, because and Customs has done a good job of automating a lot of those processes, but any glitch and you're going to get thrown into exam. And right now, exams taking typically a week.
So that's an extra 7 days right off the bat.
Yes. And then the other thing is, from an expense standpoint, the problem has been detention and demurrage, and particularly on container returns, and not being able to get empty returns. So, factor in anywhere from 8 to 10 days of chassis fees and detention charges. There's some movement in the federal government to try and mitigate some of that, as well as the state. California has tried to mitigate some of those detention demurrage charges, but nothing has, come to fruition yet.
Can you explain a little bit about what demurrage is for those that may not be aware of it? Because
Well-
those are additional charges that add up that we don't anticipate.
Yes, it becomes really a problem, and that is that the demurrage is the charge on a container. Okay, you did make a deal with your steamship line. Typically, you get 5 free days of that container while it's off port. So you have 5 days to offload. That's a fairly typical contract these days. And so if after your 5th day, then it goes on demurrage. And demurrage is going to be a charge, and again, depends on your steamship line contract, anywhere from $35 to $200 a day. Again, depending on your steamship line contract. And not to mention also, you're going to be charged a daily rate for that chassis, which today is typically about $40 a day. And all those add up, and there's no relief when you're trying to get an appointment to return that empty, and they tell you there's no appointments available, and you're on the hook. We've seen demurrage bills as high as $3,000 to $4,000 on empty containers that they couldn't get returned. So I mean, it's a problem, and that's something you have to factor in, because right now no one has come up with any type of relief program for that. The other thing is, on the import side, aside from your paperwork being squared away, making sure that you're communicating with whoever's receiving that container, whether it's your warehouse or your facility, if it's raw material for your goods, making sure that you have, you can take that container whenever it's available. Don't get, real restrictive. I want it on this from this time to this time. Higher, greater flexibility on when you can take it will reduce your costs, because you're going to reduce the trucker having the yard pull that container and store it somewhere until they can meet your appointment time. So the more flexibility you have on appointment times on the receipt of that container, that's better for you and reduce your overall costs.
And on the export side, what recommendations can you offer?
Ship stuff. I mean, you're saying, we have a lot of empty containers sitting around, and not enough exports going into them. One of the best ways to clear out these empties would be for your manufacturers to start shipping stuff. And I echo what I've heard this, from a lot of our customers, our clients overseas. They're clamoring for U.S. products. They really do have that value add, and they think highly of them. They don't get enough of them. So we hear that from our clients overseas a lot, that they're always looking for U.S. made products. So there's a lot of value in that, made in the USA.
So accessing the containers and getting them shipped to the Far East is not an issue?
No, it has not been. We just did a bunch of export loads this last week. I think we shipped out 45 export loads in just a matter of days.
Okay.
That has not been an issue.
Because I think there's a perception that that's a challenge.
Not right now.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of containers available, and the steamship lines want those loaded containers.
Okay. We can open this up. Do any of you have any questions? We have an expert here that has a lot of expertise. And I BJ, I do come from, originally I started out in global transportation. It's a good training ground. And you're right. It's like people don't understand what it is or how important it is.
I have a quick question just for the small manufacturers who aren't necessarily exporting. but who are having trouble moving product out of the plant. I know one specifically, they are just simply having trouble getting trucks to move their product. Can you speak to that, BJ?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a team, your best point these days is to get with a good freight broker. It's great direct, a lot of people think, well, I can save a lot of money if I have direct contracts with the carriers. Well,
Mhm.
that's all well and good, but when they have capacity issues and you only have contracts with one or two carriers, you've limited your ability to get capacity with your load. And particularly, we see this a lot with clients that have negotiated really low rates with their carriers and then can't figure out why their carrier never has capacity for their loads. And they say, well, it's pretty simple. Other guys are paying spot market rates and you're paying a really low contract rate. Whose load do you think they're going to move? So don't limit yourself. I mean, again, in normal times, direct contracts with carriers is a great deal. And particularly if you have consistent moves to consistent locations, that's a great deal. But in times like this, when capacity is scarce, having a broker that can, leverage, thousands of carriers versus just a handful, that's a good way to go.
And that's an important point, BJ, that people need to understand. A lot of the pricing is based on the volume over the year. So if you're working with a freight forwarder or a trucker that has that larger capacity, especially when there's a crunch, that's who's going to be able to move the freight for you. So that's something to consider. That's a good point. Anyone have any challenges out there, or is everything moving pretty well?
Hopefully I answered everybody's questions or scared you to death. I'm not sure which.
Well, and I think to BJ's point, the idea is we need to start positioning, building more time as you're moving your goods. Anticipate that it is going to take more time, and then take the time to do it correctly, so that when as he says, when it moves, it's more likely to move as you want it to arrive, rather than what the capacity is.
And the other thing I would say is that what we see a lot is like everybody moved from just in time to just late. They, and a lot of the problems we see today is because after 2008, people across the spectrum reduced their inventory loads so much because they got caught with high inventories during the recession. So people, like we tend to do in America, we overreacted and went the other way and reduced their inventory so low that when you get a glitch like a pandemic, you have no safety stock because everybody was, trying to cut things so close. And they got it cut it so close that, again, we adopted the phrase just late because everything was late and everything was a rush. And so, yes, we've restocked the inventories a lot, but the just late is very expensive. So planning that timeline and planning the timing so that you understand the bottlenecks, you understand the time, will save you money. That's going to be key if you want to be competitive as a manufacturer. Is how do I save money? The way to do that is to time it out so that it isn't just late. Because the minute things are late, that's when you start getting expedited fees and all these other charges that end up cropping up and driving up your costs because it was late. And in some cases, back charges from your clients because you didn't perform in the time frame the contract told you to. All those things crop up. So timing that out and putting in time, buffer time for all those different challenges that are going to happen will be important to your bottom line. Trust me on that.
Hey, BJ.
And then it separates you from the competition as well.
How you doing, BJ? Good to see you. Hey,
Steve, how you
yeah.
doing, bro?
Yeah, good. BJ and I used to serve on a board together, and we're friends dating back quite a while. From a workforce perspective, I know you touched upon workforce briefly, but just kind of from your own experience with regard to Pacific Mountain Logistics, how are you solving kind of workforce recruitment challenges? What sort of strategy do you have in play, and what are you experiencing?
Well, I mean, we've been very fortunate that, went into the pandemic with a really solid core group of people. Our wages are up 36% from the beginning of the pandemic to now. So, and that's just pure wages. So the increases. And we all cried about the $15 minimum wage, but man, we went past that. So, wages, workplace environment. We do cookouts and feeds and all kinds of different, incentives and programs to try and keep employees engaged. Recruitment bonuses, if you can suggest somebody, or your own employees are your best recruiting process. So if they're out telling others about, you're a good place to work, that's the best way to get. And not to mention now the employees have buy-in to that person. So, they're going to be, very picky about who they bring in, because, they know now they're going to have to work with them. So we've done that. We've used multiple agencies to try and help recruit. We've taken advantage of the workforce development department and some of their programs to help bring in people from different walks, apprenticeships, internships. I think it's just kind of got to cast a wide net if you want to try and be successful. As long as, and also automating some processes. At some point you have to eliminate some processes too.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, do you want to contribute anything about the southern border transportation exports?
I can. Well, I've been working with some manufacturers to expand or to sell into the Mexico market, especially the Baja industrial sector, which represents over 500 multinationals, which I just learned about 80% of them are American. So, but also keep in mind, you don't have the transit issues that you have moving via ocean. So that could be a competitive advantage if you have products. And I will tell you, just the Tijuana or the Baja California region, which we consider, we think of whale watching, we think of fishing, we think of tourism. We don't think of the industrial sector, but it represents $10 billion of supplier needs. And it's all about speed to market. And, a lot of our manufacturers are located right here, near the border within 3 to 4 hours. So that's huge. That's a huge competitive advantage. And key sectors are aerospace, automotive, electronics, medical device. And it's not just components. It could be metal stamping. I just attended the medical device trade show, and there's a whole list in the medical device sector. There's a whole list of supplier needs that, we likely have manufacturers that could meet those needs. And the other thing that I'll share about, especially doing business with the border, is typically the companies, you would ship it to a freight forwarder on the border, because the border is going to consolidate all the component pieces and move it over, say, to a Honeywell as one shipment. They'll do it for cost, for cost purposes. So actually sometimes shipping, especially to the border region, it's actually a little bit easier than most companies think.
Do we have any other questions?
So BJ, anecdotal evidence, at least that I'm reading about, I realize that your boots on the ground, but is that things are beginning to improve, that some of the costs on transportation side and some of the freight rates for the shipping lines, and just in general, the flow of goods coming in are starting to improve. What's your boots on the ground experience right now with this as it relates to your own operation? Is that true or false, or Kind of, how are you seeing it?
No, I mean, it's true. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, I think it's a false flag. It's a temporary respite. Again, I can't overemphasize the impact of Shanghai and the closure and in those areas and what that's going to bring. When Shanghai fully reopens, which some say could happen in the next 3 weeks, there's a tsunami of freight sitting there, and that's going to clog it all back up again. I think that people don't realize the amount of freight that moves through there. Yes, truck tonnage is down, but then again, it's April and May. I mean, people are worried about taxes in April, not out buying stuff. So April, May, June, that's typically a long time anyway. So couple that with the lower flow of goods because of the Shanghai closure, the time of year, yes, truck tonnage is down. And truckers are their own worst enemy. As soon as they see a few missing loads, they'll start dropping prices. That's what they always do. But what we see in forecasts and what we see moving forward is, mid-June through September, you want to hold on to your hats. It's going to get pretty ugly as that break begins. And remember, that's going to release the same time that people start bringing in Christmas and those fall goods. So it's, again, kind of the perfect storm again. So yes, you're correct, and it's better now, and the rates are lower now. But unfortunately, I think that's very temporary.
I have a question.
Hi, Judy,
Please.
Hi.
from Microdyne Plastics.
Yes, we have been having some logistics issues in regard to pickups from some of our clients because we don't normally put together the trucking, they do, distributors and or OEMs. And so this is going to get worse, isn't it? Because there's just not enough truckers. They've disappeared. They're a breed that you're not getting additional truckers fast enough. And then we have this additional freight coming in. It is a tsunami then. And it really is very concerning because as a manufacturer, even getting material in to run, we have to really plan out, like you said, is it BJ?
Yes.
Anyways, just a statement that I guess we'll have to really advise our clients that not only are we experiencing just extraordinary long lead times for everything, even on our machines, because we had an influx of orders in the last few years, understandably again, but it's everywhere. Everywhere is slow. I don't know how else to put it. Wherever you go, everything is hurry up and wait.
BJ, do you have a suggestion for that kind of scenario?
No, the depends on the carriers you're using, your customers, and their contracts. Right now, it should be better than it was. Trucking capacity. The problem is that the increase in volume with the trucks.
Yeah.
People forget that it's not just that there weren't enough truckers or not enough truckers coming in. The volume just kept coming up.
Yeah.
So with the volume increasing consistently, and again, there is a shortage of truck drivers and has been, that's just made the problem worse. So, from a standpoint of, collect freight or, your customer driven freight, that's just working with them to make sure that they've got, good relations with their carriers to get things picked up. And
Yeah.
the smaller they are, the harder it will be for them.
Yeah. Well, these are pretty big distributors. That's where I'm thinking, wow, if they can't get it, who can?
So with that, BJ, thank you so much for your time today. And Elizabeth, thank you for your time. If you have further questions for either speaker, we can definitely get you connected. And I did want to take a moment and introduce Marianne Johnson from San Bernardino County Workforce Development. She has an announcement to make.
Yes, sure. This actually goes right in line with what you're talking about. So we are in the process of submitting a grant that's in partnership with our community colleges in the region. And this is not one of those grants where we submit it and hope we get awarded. This is one of those ones that we submit and we will get awarded. It's just a matter of how much. So the money was set aside specifically for workforce boards and community colleges. The truck driving. So one of the projects that we have put into the grant, Victor Valley College just got approved curriculum for truck driving training, and they've already purchased 2 trucks and trailers, and they're going to use their High Desert Training Center, which is out at SCLA, which if you haven't been out there is the perfect place to train because there's all kinds of space and land, so it's great. We are using them as a pilot for this grant so that we can help some of the other colleges in our region learn from how it works in one so that potentially we can replicate it all over. We see this as a way to address that truck driving shortage because currently the truck driving training can be fairly pricey. So even with us funding them, we can fund less people because it's an expensive training for us. So if we can do it through community colleges, they're usually much more cost effective than some of the private trainers. So we're excited about this being part of the grant. So look for that coming soon. And VVC is going to be ready to hit the ground running when we get that funding at the end of this year. The other projects that we're funding that would be relevant to all of you that are manufacturing is some funding, and Sandra's here. So from the Intech Center, we want to continue to fund those industrial maintenance mechanic programs. They have got the pre-apprenticeship program and apprenticeship program, as well as VVC is using some the same curriculum, but not yet approved as a pre-apprenticeship. And then we have a number of other colleges that do other machining type programs. And those colleges that we're going to be including are Barstow College, Norco College, Mount San Jacinto, and San Bernardino Valley College. So that'll help you again get more folks into those training programs at no cost to them, so that way then they can get hired with by all of you. So the other thing that we're doing in a couple of these is we heard from our partners at Chafee that some of the small employers are struggling to compete against the large ones that are doing those really big signing bonuses. So we have been allowed with this grant to put in some incentives for employees that go work for small employers. And we're talking like 25 and less, so that way those employers can compete with some of the large ones that are offering that. So more to come with exactly how that's going to be structured and how it will work, but we're excited to try and do things to help our employers of all different sizes with this grant funding. And again, this one is one that we are absolutely getting funding. It's just a matter of how much. So we're excited about that. So thanks, Molly, for having us on and be able to share some of the work that we're doing to try and help support all of you employers.
That's a great announcement. Thanks so much, Marianne. Sandra, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have anything to report for Intech Center?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. So first of all, thank you, Marianne Johnson and San Bernardino County Workforce Development Board, who has always been extremely supportive of the work that we do. There's I'll just call it ITA funding. So we consistently receive funding to train in our pre-apprenticeship programs. They're 472 hours in industrial, electrical, and mechanical. And that is our train to work program. And kind of touching a little bit on what BJ was saying, we used to place those individuals at a starting wage of $15 an hour, and now they're starting around $23.44 an hour on average. But that's the demand, right? That's what the market is demanding. We're also launching two brand new programs. One is a registered pre-apprenticeship, or we're working on getting that registered. Can't remember if it's registered yet or not. So the pre-apprenticeship is called ARM, Automation, Robotics, and Mechatronics. And then that feeds into the registered apprenticeship, which is also ARM. automation, robotics, and mechatronics. So we are doing our best to keep up with the demand in industry in terms of technology and automation and robotics. And so if you're looking for industrial technical workers, you definitely want to contact us. I can leave my name and email in the chat. And if there's anything we can help you with, and just thank you so much to MCIE, by the way. So MCIE was a founding father of the Chaffey College InTech Center. I like to put it that way. So thank you, Molly.
You're welcome. Thank you. Well, we're at the end of our day, and people can hang around and continue to chat with each other. We'll be on for a couple more minutes, and that way Sandra can put her message in the chat bar. And this event will be posted on our website on Monday afternoon, the recording, if someone you know needs to watch it. And if there's nothing else, I just want to remind you that we'd like to see you on May 18th for part 2 of our supply chain series. And keep on chatting and keep on working and being productive in manufacturing. Thanks for coming today.